very, very, very small thing. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
You have tons of awards behind you. Are those debate awards?
Yeah. So the policy that we have is the students can keep all the awards except for if they're first and second place. Most, I think some of these might be semis, but yeah. So let's see, we can. The big one that I like is, let's see if this works.
Oh my gosh, your whole office wall is covered with them.
Yeah, and then we've got a trophy case in the classroom. So it's but they get all the awards back, except for first and second place, basically.
First and second, you want to keep, right?
Yeah. Just it's pretty cool to look, especially for someone who might not know how many debate tournaments there are per year. When they come in and they see just champion and champion all over in first place, it's a good look. But no, it's more just celebrating. I want the students that I want it to be like posterity purposes and for them to like see the history when they come into the office. And it actually, to the left, there's more trophies in a case, and then there's another trophy case in the classroom, just to kind of show the success of the program and what students can achieve if they become a member of the debate team here. But it's also important to me to give their awards back too. So they're, all the speaker awards and all the non first and second place, they get to take home after the banquet at the end of the year that we have. We actually haven't had one the last 2 years. So hopefully the end of this year, we can restart that. But it was interesting. The beginning of this year, I had all of these boxes in my office. So I was gone since March 2020 all the way till August 2021. So it's a pretty big time. And so
you were gone just teaching remotely, you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So my office wasn't being like maintained really. So when I got back, it was just boxes of trophies from the last several years that, it was like Christmas with my students. We went through them, and they finally got their awards. The students who basically started during the pandemic or started right before. So that was exciting for them to finally get their awards back.
That's awesome. Yeah, I imagine especially for new debaters to come in and sort of like be surrounded by the environment, not just of other debaters, but of success, of a legacy of success that can probably do incredible things for just their mental game. Like, this is a good program. Like, my teammates are winning, like I think sets a certain bar and expectations having them everywhere. So that's cool.
Thank you. That's kind of the point. And especially for a school district that, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the school district, but especially for one that, in my opinion, supports the program. It's good to show that we're, not only thankful for it, but also that there's results, right? That there's, the result, the support they're showing us, that, we're showing it back in terms of getting results. And obviously that's not the most important thing in debate, but at the same time, it's a huge motivating factor for students. And I just personally think debate as a game is very fun. And so the more that you can kind of, I think, sell that, so to speak, to the students and get them to have buy-in, the better. And so, that's where my focus is. By no means do I want that to send a signal to students that they have to be successful and reach that level, because we know that in policy debate, it's very hard to get to that, these things that, the tournaments that start, especially like Green Hill or something like that, with over 100 teams, only one team's going to get that first place award, or nationals or something like that. So, I feel like I don't put pressure on them to have that success, but that I want them to know that it's available.
Yeah, and to set that standard of, this is the top, this is what everyone's doing. And I obviously there's going to be a very large range of student abilities and motivation in any group, right? So, but to have a high bar is never a bad thing, obviously. Obviously you could potentially have some kind of a toxic culture about needing to win, but I haven't seen that too much in debate. I'm sure it's out there, but I feel like, at least talking to coaches, I feel a lot of coaches have a lot of understanding about, where different students are at with things. So
I think
before we keep going, can I give a little bit of an introduction to you?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. I'm about you, not to you. So I'm just going to give the bio that I have, and correct me if I'm wrong about anything. That's
okay.
all. So you are head coach at Niles West out of Skokie, Illinois, right outside Chicago.
Yep.
An education professional, second diamond debate coach through NSDA. And famously, you have resurrected a 10-year deceased ceased program at the school, right? And
Mhm.
then quickly helped the team to some really resounding successes at different tournaments, really helping to create one of the nation's most well-respected teams and regularly breaking and placing in some of the nation's largest tournaments. Anything wrong about what I said?
It's very complimentary. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course.
Not gonna argue with that.
Awesome, awesome. So can we start just at the very beginning? How did you get into debate? How did you get started?
Yeah, so it's a kind of an interesting story. My mom was the former director of debate, or actually director of forensics, I think they called it, at New Trier High School, which is in Winnetka, Illinois, which is pretty close to Skokie, where I teach now. And in, I'd say like probably junior high, around fifth and sixth grade, my parents went through a divorce, and my mom was still looking for childcare, which obviously as a debate coach would be difficult given the fact that everything's on the weekends. And so, she was going through that process, and I was kind of like acting out. I think just given the family circumstances. And so she was just like, well, you're going to have to come to these debate tournaments because I'm having trouble finding, a sitter. And also I'm, worried if you're going to be not behaving with the sitter. And so she's like, come to this debate tournament. And then back then it was, the mid 90s. There wasn't a tab, www.tabroom.com, right? It was all on paper, and there was a actual tabulation room. And so that's where I was hanging out. And, with these Ted Belch and debate coaches that are, at that point, Tara Tate was in the community yet, but, so just all these debate coaches, Scott Deathridge, that were very well known in their field, and then also their assistant coaches who were either like law school students at Northwestern or University of Chicago, or undergrads at Northwestern or University of Chicago. So it was like in this room full of all these brilliant minds, but they're all adults, and I was just like, I'm a kid and I'd rather be with the high school kids. And so my mom was like, well, I'll let you go watch debates. And so instead of, I would hang out in the tabulation room sometimes, but instead of doing that, I decided that it was more interesting to go and just hang out with the high school kids. At that point, wasn't about debate. It was more about just getting out from the adults and wanting to hang out with the cool high school kids. And so I remember just going around to different rooms, and sometimes not the most friendly reactions at that time. But then there were other teams that were very, other schools that were very open to me watching and hanging out with them.
Because you were a little kid at this point, right?
Yes,
so you have these high school policy debaters, a little kid walks in the room, wants to come hang out with them.
Yeah, exactly. And in the North Shore or Northern Illinois district, which is a very competitive district, especially back then. That's when the Glenbrooks were, I would say, probably, one of their height. They're obviously very successful now still, but back then, just like, you have the Glenbrooks, you have your Trier. There were schools that no longer have programs like Oak Grove High School that were really successful. And so you had all of these like amazingly smart kids and super competitive. As I said, like some of them were not so down with having the kid in the room, and some were fine with it. And the ones that were actually ended up being from Niles West. And so that year, I got kind of attached to this 4 Niles West debaters who were to a female partnership and a male partnership, and they both were easily top 10 debate teams in the country. So then I remember going to nationals that year, and they won nationals that year. I didn't go to the TOC that year, but my mom let me know. I remember her letting me know that they won the TOC. And so it was pretty cool that, like, not only was I hanging out with these high school kids, but also they were successful, and I wanted to be successful like them. And so I just decided that, instead of trying to stay home or I did some soccer for sure. But besides that, I was like, I remember just having this discussion with my mom, 7th grade. I want to do it. I want to start. I'm ready to go. I know what topicality is. I know what, I know all this stuff. And I just remember actually going back to the tab room and starting to talk about the rounds and getting the reaction of the coaches being like, whoa, he actually knows what he's talking about. He's understanding policy debate, which is a very complicated, activity to understand. But I wanted in, I was all about it. And so I just remember the kid, the high school kids being like very excited that a very young junior high kid was wanting to debate. At that point, it wasn't as common as it is now to have middle school debaters. And so I started debating against high school kids in 7th grade at New Trier. I would finish in Wilmette Junior High, where I grew up. So I moved to Wilmette when my parents got divorced. And so I went to Wilmette Junior High, and then I would go and basically get picked up and then go over to New Trier to learn debate and to participate on the debate team. And so I did it from seventh grade all the way to my senior year in high school. I had good success, went to the TOC 3 times. I should have competed at NSDA districts. I don't know why I didn't want to qualify for nationals, but I now looking back, I mean, I totally see why. The tournaments that I think I now, from a teacher perspective, I should have taken more seriously, like state and NSDAs. I would totally do them now, whereas before I was more into like Green Hill and St. Mark's and the Octus bid tournaments and the TOC itself.
I'm sorry. Can you tell me the difference between these things and why at the time you weren't into the NSDA tournaments?
Yeah. So I think like the IHSA and the NSDA were just more formal, and especially for NSDA, I think the style, at least in the 1990s, of debate for that, I felt for that tournament wasn't maybe my skill set. But I also just was a high school kid and I felt like maybe didn't have guidance about, even though my mom was the debate coach, she didn't want to pressure me. So she wasn't like, you have to go to NSDAs or you have to go to state. I mean, state actually I did go and was successful, but obviously a very hard state to win the title in. But I guess for me, because of the community, so I was very attached to the older students. When I started, I went to Michigan Classic, I think after 8th grade I think after 8th grade or 7th grade. So I started going to debate camp and being friends with these juniors and seniors in high school. So my focus was seeing them at tournaments. So like the Glenbrooks, Green Hill, MBA, the tournaments where, especially back then, everyone would go to, Emory. And it was, for me at that point, especially when I was younger in high school, more about the social elements and seeing friends. I had a very good high school experience at New Trier, had a lot of good friends. But, at the same time, that aspect of policy debate is pretty cool in terms of meeting friends from across the country, and they're all really smart and they're talking about all these things, especially when you're younger and they're older, just things that they're teaching you. I mean, they're teaching you all these really cool concepts. And, I remember going to debate camp with them and just, during downtime, just doing speaking drills and speed drills with these individuals that I just really looked up to. And so that's kind of like, that's why my emphasis, I think, in high school was on those tournaments. Now looking back, obviously as a high school teacher, I realized the importance of NSDA nationals and realized the importance of state more so than, maybe not more so, but just as important as some of those other tournaments that I mentioned. But at the end of my senior year in high school, I decided not to debate in college, and really excited to get into University of California, Santa Barbara, and just was a very good fit for me as a school. I do remember freshman year at UC Santa Barbara, a student emailing me and asking to start a debate team. At that point, I was a pledge in a fraternity, very busy schedule with my fraternity obligations. And I was double majoring and minoring, trying to finish college early because I do the AP tests. I started as a sophomore or whatever, as a second year. And so I don't know why I decided that, but I was like, this is a goal I have set for myself. And so I was just really busy. And I remember emailing that person and being like, I just don't have time. I realized what college debate, how much, the intensity of college debate, and that basically would have changed my entire college experience. And I, at that point, decided not to do it. And never thought that, and I was assistant coach for New Trier. Like when they would go out to California for tournaments, I would meet them and judge and coach. But I never really thought that I would be a teacher or head debate coach. So after college, went to law school. And then at the end of law school, I did finish law school, but I was kind of just like, I don't really like this, or the only really experience I had in law school I enjoyed was when I was working in a law firm in France. And due to obviously like work permit stuff, there was no way that I was going to be able to get that job like after. I don't even know if they were hiring, right? But it was just like this exchange program. Very great experience of learning at a university in Alsace-Lorraine, and then going to work at a trademark law firm in Paris. So it was like an amazing experience. But then besides that, I just felt like I didn't want to do this, and I didn't want to finish, law school and then do law and practice law, being unhappy. And so when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do after I graduated, I ended up going back to New Trier. It was very humbling. Still knew some of the students that were there. And I think they were kind of just like, oh, you're, a substitute teacher. And there's nothing wrong with that by any means. Substitute teachers are great and really help the education system. If we didn't have them, we'd be in big trouble. But it was just very humbling, just still though, going back and just kind of having a process of like, okay, what I want to do with my life. And then realizing during that year, I really like enjoying, I enjoy being an assistant coach for debate. I enjoy, being in the classroom and talking about social studies concepts and things that, I'm passionate about. And so I realized that at least at the very least, teaching could be an option, and maybe debate could be an option. And I thought, okay, well, maybe, I could work at New Trier. And so I had to get my certification. So even though I was, had a law degree and had a bachelor's, I had to go back to school
to get a teaching certification.
Yeah,
right?
correct. Yeah. Especially because Illinois wasn't going to mess around. And then I didn't even know if I wanted to work in Illinois. I just knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, I just started doing research. And I remember I got waitlisted at Wake for law school. And so I always wanted to see if I could get in. And so I ended up talking to Dr. Adam Friedman, who I think is the department chair there now, or pretty high level position now, was getting his tenure there, and we just started going back and forth in email. And then the application process actually required a video interview, and they give full rides for their teacher. It's called Master Teacher Fellows. So basically, I think everybody in the group had a full ride scholarship, and then some had stipends too. So they do, have good funding, which was nice to get kind of, especially after getting into debt in law school, to then not have to pay for a master's. And, it wasn't like I was living large in Winston-Salem, but, I was a grad student. But at the same time, it was good to have that tuition for free. And so it's a 13-month accelerated program, student teaching in spring, and, culmination capstone project at the end. And during spring break, the former coach who I remember, I think I went to Disney World with him during nationals in Fort Lauderdale. I think they drove all the way up to Orlando. He was the coach at Niles West. He was an English teacher, coach at Niles West. He ended up leaving to go to law school and then came back to the school district as the chief legal officer, I believe. One of his colleagues in the English department was the superintendent. So there was access to a job opportunity because of their desire and belief in debate and wanting to restart the programs. And so it was just kind of circumstances, because he was looking for somebody, it was a connection through my mom, and just also growing up, we had lost touch. It's not like I had, known this person and then kept in touch. It was just we went separate ways. I was a young kid, and he decided to do a different career. And so I got an offer. I remember I applied to New Trier, I applied to Niles West, and I also got an offer at a country day school down in North Carolina. Country day school not only, didn't have debate, but they were like, oh, we might, we would talk about debate, tell us about it, we might start it, but also just was the offer was just not, I couldn't live off of it basically. And so I was just kind of surprised the differences between teacher salaries between, school states. I mean, I wasn't, that surprise is the wrong word, but I just wow, that's reality. It's going to make an economic decision. It's huge. It's a substantial difference. And so
what kind of range are we talking about?
So for I believe probably that offer was low 30s, 40s. And my salary information for Niles West, I don't want to say it, but it's
no, I mean, but in general, you could have some teachers, if you're experienced and tenured, you could be doing over 100,000. Yes.
In Northern Illinois. Yes. So yeah, for sure. And that's probably
so a difference of potentially 3-4 times in different places in the country. Right. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Big difference.
Yeah. So I just totally want to be transparent about that, and just that I'm not speaking on behalf of my school district, but all that information is available.
No, I just mean teachers' salary in general. This is a well-known fact. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well-known fact that there's those big differences, and I just didn't really I've heard about those differences, but didn't realize whoa, this is going to be a substantial I could either not do debate and work at the school that seemed very functional, supportive, privileged. I mean, but it seemed like they supported people that didn't have that access to resources, and had, some diversity through, I think bringing in, having it as an initiative and being mindful of bringing in a diverse population. So I could see myself being successful there, but they didn't have debate. And then I was a finalist for the New Trier job and actually wasn't offered it. My mom and I were going to overlap for a year. So I don't know if she obviously wasn't on the hiring committee. So I don't know if that was a factor in my
Could be,
decision,
yeah.
but I remember that day, I actually found out that morning that they were not, they were going to advance the other candidate. It was the final two. And I was kind of bummed out, but at that same day I was going to Niles West to essentially sign a contract. And so it was the blow of, me in my mind, I was like, I'm going to go back and coach for my high school and it's going to be great and glorious. And the team is already there. And, and so I knew it was going to be a lot harder. A lot harder restarting a program than going back and doing the easy thing at a school, which is an amazing school. New Trier is a wonderful school, nationally, probably internationally known. But I was kind of bummed out. But then that day I was like, well, I'm going over to, this is exciting. Like I'm going to a school that I, grew up with those kids, seeing them be successful, winning the TOC and NSDA in the same year with two different teams. I knew that there was a history there, and also great salary, great benefits, and they were going to have a budget. The biggest thing for me was that Niles West is a very diverse school. And so I didn't want to deny access to opportunities for students that couldn't afford it. And so I was really, my big thing was you need to fund the program, and I'll do the fundraising for the summer for student scholarships to go to debate camp, because you really have to go to debate camp at the highest to be successful at the highest level. And that's what I wanted at that point for the program. And so, I ended up getting that offer, accepting that offer, and they funded the program right out of the start. I taught global studies, it was called. It's not even a class anymore. Just a bunch of freshmen. They put, the administration was smart. They put me with a bunch of freshmen. And I just remember being young was very helpful, because the kids were willing to, they wanted to be around me. They wanted to ask questions. And I just remember doing my best to just get a core group of students. And in that year, we lost a lot at the beginning, a lot. But then in novice division, we started to be successful. I'd say in like December, we got to the finals of a tournament. I think we lost to like Pace, or one of those schools where, they have middle school debate and his very historic debate team program. But realizing like, okay, this could happen. And then we started, being able to compete with GBN that year. And, Glenbrook North that year had like ended up having that generation, that class ended up having, I think, 5 teams to the TOC or 4. Natalie Kinez, probably the best debater in her generation for policy debate. And so it was kind of cool to be like, whoa, like we can do this, we can actually compete. And it was hard at the beginning though, to earn that respect. And we, getting those first TOC bids, I remember the first time we won a bid round, just how excited me and the other assistant coaches were, and how excited the students were.
Because at this point, everyone in the program, the coaches, the assistant coach, I guess, and all of the students, this is like, you're all in this together. There's no real, some kind of a legacy at the school, but nothing involved with any of these people. This is something you built from the ground.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And so that created such a bond. That created, like, there were hard times, just like every team has hard times in debate. There's hard things with partnerships and, picking teams to go to tournaments, and there's things that can complicate the relationship between the student, the parent, the administrator, the teacher, all the different stakeholders. But we were all in this together, and it was kind of like a sort of us versus them mentality, but in a good, healthy way. In a way that really built a team. And really built connections between all of us that still exist today. And I think, majorly is because of what you just said, just about the restarting of the program, and then restarting in a state, an area where we weren't going to be given any pass. There was not going to be, any sort of,
because the competition is so fierce, you mean?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like, there was just no way that they were going to, we had to fight very hard to get our place and earn the respect of the judges and other schools. It wasn't going to be given to us by any means. And so I just remember that third year is when we qualified for the TOC for the first time. And then from year 3 to like year 10 or 9 or something, it was like tons of TOC bids, like several teams of the TOC. At least 3 teams clearing at the TOC, winning Green Hill, finals and nationals. We won, a couple state championships, one at the novice level, one at the varsity level. So it was a crazy ride. It was, and we've been kind of in a rebuilding sort of cycle. One is just, it was just naturally going to happen at some point, right? I mean, every program, you can't go for like, even the schools that have had debate programs for 30 plus years, there's going to be a couple years where they have to rebuild, but two, then all of a sudden COVID happened. And so, I now find myself in a situation where we're looking at everything we've accomplished and we're trying our best to kind of get those numbers maintained and increase recruitment and retention in a world of virtual debate, which, to be honest with you, I mean, has a lot of positives, but also takes away a lot of the incentives for at least novice debaters and JV debaters to debate, which is to travel, to meet new people, to miss some school. I mean, let's be honest. And so I think that was, it's been hard. I mean, it's been hard, but I'm proud of my students and especially the ones that have stuck with it in virtual debate. And it'll be interesting to see where we go. And the administration's been great about there's no pressure on numbers and things like that. And the cool part, the way it's structured is there's in an introduction to debate class, and we actually do public forum in that debate class for a couple of reasons. One is the time. So we only have 42 minutes. We're not on a block schedule. So policy debate, you can't do a whole round. And there's no way that I want to be like, okay, pause this round. Especially for new debaters. So there's no way that's going to happen. And then two, I think public forum is a more approachable and accessible activity than policy debate. I mean, I'm a big, policy guy, obviously from history. I've done policy debate. I think it's just so impactful for people's minds and the ability to speak confidently and to think about things critically. But I also think that it can turn away new students if not done.
Public forum is a good stepping stone to get people in before they start.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, you got it. And so it's fun because also they get to pick their topics. So you get some student voice and choice in the curriculum. And then you also, you get to, I just think that the spreading too, like even though nowadays public forum debaters, a lot of them go fast, they don't go as fast as policy debaters, but that element I think turns people away sometimes. And so I liked it. Like I was like, this is an awesome game. Like I want to go fast and talk fast and all that stuff. But I think some people get, they're already nervous about public speaking. And so then to ask them to sound different than they normally would, I think turns people off. And so we do public forum and introduction debate. And circling back, I realized I didn't even mention this. So the program has grown to the point where enrollment wise, I don't teach any non-debate classes. So I have enough intro to debate enrollment. Plus we have a debate, then an advanced debate class, which is in the same class. And that's to compete on the team class. And so from year one, having obviously none of that to then, having the support of the administration in terms of curriculum changes to have now 3 debate classes, an intro to debate class, which is a semester long class, level 3, which is a regular grade weight, and then now year-long debate and advanced debate honors classes. It's, and it's my 12th year. It's been pretty fast to actually get to those numbers. And so hundreds of kids will take the intro to debate class each year. I think probably like maybe low 200. So at least they have exposure to debate, which is great, even if they don't end up competing on the team. And then we usually go from like 60 to 30 kids who are actually competing on the policy team. So the numbers are great. The numbers are healthy. But in terms of like the actual competing and getting those numbers up, like we're in a rebuilding. And I think partially because of COVID and virtual debate.
Right. And I imagine that's a struggle that everyone's going through to one level or another. But the fact that you have such a strong debate program already probably makes it much more resilient for your school. Like whatever kind of things are going to come your way, COVID or whatever else, like you're still going to have that strong foundation, I imagine.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think so too. And like even last year, we had a team go to the TOC and they won a quarters bid tournament. They won
amazing.
Grapevine. So the results still are coming in, which is great. And the scholarships are too. I mean, I didn't mention that. We've had, I think, $1.3 million of actual scholarship acceptances. So not just offers, but like of kids going to college due to a scholarship that has something to do with debate. Not all of them are strictly debate, but the way I did it is I want to be fair to the number. I didn't want to, make the number seem bigger than it really was. But
1.3 million accepted, probably many times that offered.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. For something related to debate, whether full debate or honors school or grades plus debate. But yeah, a significant amount of money. which is wonderful, to change these students' lives and, to not have them go to school with debt or graduate school with debt is such a huge thing nowadays. And so really, that's what also interests the students is like, look, if you want this, there's a lot of schools where it's going to be very difficult due to the lack of support to get to that level. You can. I mean, we've seen programs that have had 2 debaters win championships and get scholarships, but it's a significantly harder process. And so that's what's cool to be able to tell these students, look, like there's systems in place here that, will support you and set you up for success. And so that's been exciting. I mean, that's really cool that, I have a debate office. Not many schools have that. I mean, I remember seeing the one at Elmberg South and I was like, okay, I want one too. And, had, just the kind of, and it makes sense too, for my colleagues in the social studies department. I was on the phone all the time. And then especially ones that didn't understand, like, what is this guy doing? Like, why is he always on the phone? Like, who's he talking to? Because I was talking to hotels and talking to the business office and talking to HR, like there's so many aspects of being a director of debate or director of forensics that make it a very different job than a high school teacher, getting points, files, and, things that just traveling all over, and getting home on a Sunday or Monday and then leaving on a Thursday or Friday, when that element of debate existed. And now staying on, the weekends and Zooming, basically being on the Zoom or Discord the whole weekend and that whole element. And so it's a very unique job. And I'm glad that the area, not only my school, but I'm glad that the area, and once again, this is my opinion, not speaking on behalf of these school districts, but I'm glad that they support debate and they believe in debate and that they provide the necessary resources to the teachers to be successful and to thank the teachers. Whereas I am just so impressed with my colleagues in other areas of the country that, I mean, some of them do it for free. I mean, there's actually some people around here too who do the job for free, or they do it for a very low stipend where easily they're not making minimum wage due to how many hours debate requires.
Right. I imagine part of that with you as well, though, is that you're kind of born and bred to debate, right? So putting all of that money and support into you breeds obvious results, right? And I imagine that, I don't want to speak about debate just in terms of an investment, but it is that, right? Really into students, right? Like, so you're giving, an office and support and classes and all this, like what kind of results are you going to see? I think with you as a head coach, that makes a lot of sense. It could be if you have less of a legacy, less of a competitive area, maybe even less of an experienced coach, right? Maybe just, an English teacher or something who's, sort of bootstrapping as some kind of a program that they don't know a whole lot about. Maybe that investment wouldn't make as much sense.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's what makes
sense. I did want to talk about these classes because I think this is potentially, it's interesting and potentially unique that you have in-school debate classes, right? Which you teach all of these. How normal of a thing is that at schools to have actual like in-school debate classes? That and what kind of an impact do you think it's had on your program to be able to do that? Also, how long have you been doing that?
Yeah, so those are all really good questions. So first I'll start with how long it took. So one of the big steps was in like the roadmap. Right. I always think about, so I'm separately, obviously not anything related to my job. I'm really big on cryptocurrency and NFT projects and things. And so the roadmap is a big thing for them. You have to, step one, so this is what's kind of making me think of. And it's interesting because I can tie it back kind of to what I did is I had like a 5-year plan. And in that 5-year plan, one of the things is we need a class. And I think that's definitely from my experience with my mom. Seeing New Trier have a class and the kids going during 8th and 9th period, going in the back, they had this like back room where they like did this brainstorming and cut cards back then, we had tubs that were all stored there and, paper evidence. And so I think that's like, for me, I was like, I saw the difference between, I believe, a school like that. And then, a school that was local that had produced great debaters, but also didn't have a class and didn't have that support. And then also I knew Glenbrook's had a class. And so that was one of the big roadmap things was get a class. And so I would say, I think honestly, the class might have started year 2. And that was that we started by having the advanced debate, I think, class, because that was where the kids that just, had that intense novice year. And so, or it was the debate class and then, had an advanced debate class for their 3rd year. So then we, then at the end of it had the intro to debate class and the component there, which was very integral, was there's a public speaking requirement at the school district. So there's 4 classes that meet that requirement. debate is one of those classes that could meet the requirement. And so that really helped enrollment too, because then students, they have to take one of the classes. Now, it also can be tricky because they're probably not going to be as willing to debate, like go and compete. So you have to then kind of, it's like you have to sort of, I still run a club, so you can't just be like rest on your laurels and just be like, oh, I have kids in the class. So I still have an opportunity for kids who aren't in the classes to debate. And a lot of our novice class is actually usually kids who are in that situation, and then they join their second year. But so, yeah, so it's been since year 2, and there's 3 classes, and it's had a tremendous impact on the program. I think that we would be nowhere near as successful as we were and have been and will be because of the debate class. It's just gives
a big part of that just the huge pool you have to draw on, that it's not kids wandering around, wandering into club after school, and making that decision, but you have hundreds of kids that are minimum getting exposed to it to draw on, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's that. And I also think just like having time during the day to do research, having time during the day to talk about partnership stuff or talk about do rebuttal redo, or just like start a practice round during 9th period so we can go home at a reasonable hour and not like 6 p.m. Like, so there's just so many logistical things that make sense. And I think it's incentivizes, right? It's like you do all this work, you travel on the weekends, you talk about things like neoliberalism, hegemony, Afro-pessimism, so many concepts that we, AP English barely gets to probably touch on. And so they deserve credit. They just, the students all across the country deserve academic credit for debate. And so it was like also that pedagogical perspective of like, they deserve that. And I think that also incentivizes them for the students that want to be in honors classes and they want to have what they, feel a competitive transcript for college. Adding debate really helps. And it's, like you said, a lot of, it's not as common as I thought, because a lot of times people are like, wait, there's a class for that. Even substitute teachers or teachers here, new teachers here, administrators are like, wait, there's a class for debate. And then you introduce them to this whole world of competitive debate. And they're just like, whoa. And, the NSDA is a huge organization, and debate is really blown up, and it's blown up also in the urban debate leagues, which is great to see. I mean, it was just starting when I was in debate and competing in debate. So to see that aspect of debate grow is wonderful. And so I think having a class it professionalizes it. It makes it equalizes the treatment. If we have fine arts classes for band and, choir and all of that, and theater, then it just is logical. I mean, why not for speech and debate? I kind of looking back of it, I kind of wish I developed the speech side a little bit more, but structurally that was different. They had that wasn't combined. And I think that's something, you can't win all of your recommendations, right? And so one of my recommendations was to have those combined. I think that would have been, I think we would have had more comprehensive program if we would have done that. But, once again, that wasn't any criticism of the school district I'm in. I just think like that's, if I could have done it over, I think I would have strongly, it's not me, I think I would have strongly made the recommendation to combine the speech and debate programs. Because I think that when you look at schools that have that interaction and collaboration, those tend to be like the powerhouse schools of debate and the ones that have the most participation. But this class has done wonders, I think, in, like you said, having a pool of debaters to draw from, but also just professionalize it into, this is a class. And so especially when you're talking to teachers about missing school, and they're all very supportive, and they'll let me know if they have reservations about a student. I'm very professional about it. But I just think like when you have a discussion, it's like, this is for a class, just that starting point is very different than this is a club. And I always want to call it a team. I always want to call it co-curricular than extracurricular. That branding goes really far in terms of making the program distinguished and stand out and drawing people in and getting the support. I mean, having that support, every budget is it's not, once you get a budget, it doesn't mean that you get it every year, right? I mean, the school district in every state, they approve budgets yearly. And so I'm sure that they want to see that the program's not just debate, and I'm not speaking on as Niles West, but just in general school districts, they want to see that they're, like you said, investment is paying dividends. And that, what is that? It's to benefit students. And debate clearly, we both obviously are going to believe that debate, benefits students tremendously.
Yeah, there's, this is, so I've worked in the private debate industry for about 5 years, and there's obviously this big conflict of interest about promoting debate and making claims about debate versus what are the actual effects, right? And I've always been skeptical. I mean, I'm always skeptical about any kind of marketing or branding, where you're promising certain results or rewards, in order to make money, right? As a route to directly make money from customers, right? And so I've been on, especially with this podcast, which is still pretty new. This is going to be like the sixth, seventh interview or something. Been on something of a rampage to get to the bottom of this. And I started with admissions officers, right? Because this is one claim that's made quite a bit. And I think, I mean, there's obviously tons of anecdotal evidence, right? That high achieving debaters get admitted to top universities, right? There could be a lot of X factors around that, though, right? So I emailed a bunch of admissions officers, and that was my first kind of like reality check. Is they were just like, look, like debate's cool, but we don't, debate doesn't mean anything necessarily on an application. I mean, we also look at champion, people who do rodeo or like gun competitions or chess. There's nothing about debate per se that would make us want to. And this was all from Ivy Leagues, right? I'm not looking at like universities in general, but Ivy League or top universities specifically, right? But there's also been some research in debate, right? There's not a whole lot, but there's a few lines of academic research, two people in specific that do just debate. And one of them is at University of Michigan, Brianna Mezek, that I talked to recently. And yeah, her body of evidence, which is several decades long now, is astonishing in terms of what debate actually does for nearly every measurable student outcome. And she mostly works with urban debate leagues, right? And so that's sort of her, I guess, what she's trying to target is like what kind of interventions can work for disadvantaged kids, right? Where that delta between, where they're at and where they could be, the average or the top or whatever, that's a huge delta versus, I guess a more privileged school, like there's less of a difference to fill, right, with debate. So maybe it can help them, but like it can for disadvantaged kids who their reading, writing aren't up to par, like it can make up a huge part of that difference. So yeah, I certainly am quite convinced by it.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful to hear. And yeah, I mean, mine is like very anecdotal. Just because I grew up in the activity, just seeing people that, what they do, and hearing stories about what they're doing. I think of Neil Katyal is one of them. And my mom's like, oh my God, like he, I know him, like he, I remember him as a debater, and, obviously he's accomplished such big things. I mean, there's so many more people that I could list. And then I think it's the Rhodes Scholars was the list I saw, but one year it was just, I don't know how I got to it, but must have been not busy that day, but somehow I was like reading through things online and got to like the list of Rhodes Scholars. I believe it's that. Is that the most, or one of the most prestigious? But, and I remember reading the list. I'm like, oh my God, this person debated, just all across the country. And then all of a sudden they're now, at one of the most prestigious appointments and things to get in the country. And not saying that that's because of just policy debate, but it complemented obviously their skill set and their likelihood to succeed. And then, obviously I for sure believe that in lesser advantaged areas and areas in schools that, might not have the depth of resources or of opportunities, for sure debate makes, I'm just convinced, and there, I've reviewed some evidence of it, but it's great to hear that you're finding at least some evidence that
very strong, very awesome. Strong, very convincing evidence. Yeah.
And then I think there's really Min Luong. I don't know if you're familiar. I think his name is Min Luong. But there's a quote about I think he's done some research about debate and how hands down it's significantly increased academic achievement.
There's this one thing that I feel like people don't talk about a whole lot in the debate community, but it's obvious and certainly true that like at the highest levels, okay, people winning championships generally have very high IQs. Like I mean, there are some students who, despite their legacy or their work or their prep, are not going to win national tournaments. It's not going to happen, right? Because I mean, debate is just so cerebral and so academic and requires such just mental flexibility, right? Uh, and so there's some kids that are better cut out for that. And what I've seen about these students, right? IQ allows you to succeed in many domains, and so this is something I've seen from a lot of top debaters, that they're also like very skilled musicians, very good at math competitions. It could even be that they're champion debaters and debate's not their main thing, right? Because they could do all kinds of other things at the same time.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I think that goes part of the way in explaining the anecdotal college admissions, right? That you see these champion debaters, right, and they're just amazing at everything, including debate, right? But they're amazing at everything, right? And so you kind of see these as examples in the community. Um, there's a few more questions I want to ask, and our time's kind of running out. So
Yeah.
let me try to see which one of these can work the best. So you do have a master's in education. You touched on that before. I'm
Mhm.
wondering, and so you've just studied teaching more than most teachers. Obviously, you do have this huge legacy of debate itself, right? But also a master's in teaching. How has that influenced your work with Niles West, if at all?
Mhm.
And would you recommend that most teachers pursue a master's degree, or could that be helpful for a lot of
Yeah,
teachers?
actually, so I have that one from Wake, and then I got an administrator's certification, and then currently getting certified in ELL and special ed. I'm done with the ELL component. Halfway through special ed, I decided to take a pause. I was just doing a lot, and so I just was like, it's the program was going well. I just took a break, and so it's been a couple years. But yeah, so it'd be my third master's. I'll complete it. I'm probably going to go back, um,
Wow,
probably in like February or something. But
it's a lot of
um,
masters.
it's a professional student, but so obviously I'm a little biased, but yeah, I believe it's incredibly important, especially the first one. So administrative one, I don't think would really be helpful, obviously, to anyone unless they have had a couple of years at least of teaching experience and really want to be administrators. I think it's a very difficult job. I was an administrator for 2 years and decided to go back in the classroom because
Mm,
I felt that the politics of it was just, the focus wasn't on the kids, in my opinion. It was very
mm,
much on, and once again, this is just my experience. I felt it was very much on appeasing adults and
mm,
managing adult stuff rather than like, as an educator. I think you want to make a difference with high school kids, and it's great, I think, as a leader to make a difference with your peers. But at the same time, I just felt like the focus was a little off for me. So I decided to go back in the classroom. So I think that master's would be very important for somebody who really wants to be an administrator. And I think there's a certain skill set to be an administrator and to be successful. And really, I felt that my skill set was more in the classroom. And so I decided to go back. But in terms of the master's degrees, especially the first one in teaching practices and experience with teaching and doing research. So the first one, I mean, Wake, I'm just a huge fan of Wake Forest. I donate to Wake Forest. I'm very thankful for
mm,
the opportunity Wake Forest gave me to, restart my career, and to believe in me and to believe in my ability to be a teacher. So I'm very, very thankful for that, but also it was a really competitive and intense program. And it was multiple aspects of setting you up for success as a teacher. One was the research component, and doing research to kind of give you a perspective of like thinking about what ways can you change your practices or recommend changes of practices to influence students. But then, just classroom management is huge.
mm,
And so that student teaching component is big, but also like having the graduate school classes to talk about pedagogy and how to, design a unit plan, how to, deal with issues of if IEPs come up and in 504 plans and or just professional boundaries, professional ethics in teaching, and then culminating in a capstone where you kind of reflect and you have that moment of, wow, like this is going to be my career. This is the start. And I mean, all the teachers have jobs from Wake. Like, I mean, obviously now with teacher shortage, it's even more in demand, but I just felt like it really did prepare me. And I would
mm,
strongly recommend anybody who wants to be a teacher to eventually get their master's. I think, this is just my own opinion, but like I think it might make sense to get your bachelor's and then in your subject area, your mastery, and then
Mm.
go back and get a master's of teaching. The only thing you want to make sure you don't do is you don't want to be too expensive for the people that are recruiting you, like the HR departments. I lucked out. I was an exception. I started at the high end of the pay scale because of my law degree, and they made that exception because they wanted a debate team. And I think they wanted
Mm.
to find what they felt was the best candidate to make a debate team. I think that if I didn't have that sort of I don't think that I obviously, I guess I would have gotten hired because I had that offer that was debate related, but you don't want to price yourself out of the market. And
Mm.
so you want to make sure that like, if you do get a master's, then you want to start to try to be master's step one. So year one with a master's, or try to get a bachelor's with like maybe a minor in education, and then
Mm.
get your foot in the door in the school. And then while you're trying to get like tenure or you're trying to get a full-time position or something, then you go back to school to get your master's. So they already are going to support that. And what you don't want to do is get like, too much schooling before you have teaching experience, or get teaching experience, too much schooling, and then leave to go
Right.
to a school district, because they will price you out. I mean, I know
Mm.
for a fact there are school districts that look at that stuff when it's making hiring decisions. But I would strongly recommend an MAT type or MAED program for anyone wanting to be a teacher, and make sure it's competitive and really pushes you, because there were some kids, at least one or two that didn't make it through, not because they failed out, but they made the choice, this isn't for me. And I would
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
have, a teacher doing that before they're a teacher than doing it when they're a teacher. And that's a whole other topic that needs to be discussed, is like teacher retention. I think it's much higher, is my guess. I don't have any data to prove that, but my guess is it's much higher probably in the area that I teach, than in, other states that have had to have like strikes just to even have
Mhm.
like, a minimum wage for their teachers. And so I think that like, to retain teachers is a whole other element. But I think that, yeah, having that master's degree, I think prepares teachers, increases their chances of being a professional teacher for the rest of their life, and allows them to sort of have peers in a cohort to draw upon when needed, for
And I
advice.
guess I guess there's tons of teachers, that go in with to university with teaching in mind, right? I think especially maybe elementary or pre-K teachers, where they major in education because that's what they know they want to do. I guess a master's is a little bit different because it could be kind of a post hoc thing where you might get into education and then want a master's. Um, but I imagine, so I don't have a master's degree, but I have taken some courses. And I guess from my experience with courses, I love the fact that I frame everything happening in terms of my experience in the classroom, right? So like I think of things in terms of debate or debate projects or debate students, right? Instead of just kind of an abstract thing of like, okay, like you're supposed to be like doing, yeah, these classroom management techniques with like desks or groups or something. And you have like a real solid image of your head is this is what it looks like. This is what failure could look like. This is how things could be improved in the classroom. So very practical rather than abstract with the experience.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I just remember the first time I took the keys, so to speak, to the classroom of a teacher. My cooperating teacher, I really had a tremendous amount of respect for him.
Mm.
He was one of the best teachers I've ever seen, just so organized. Didn't take, anything, like he did his classroom management in a way that was pretty strict, but also just like the students had a lot of respect for him. And I
Mm.
think, he's probably like North Carolina Teacher of the Year. I think he's at least won it once. So, he has taught me a lot about being a teacher and
Mm.
that practical sort of experience. And then going back, the cool part about it is then even during student teaching, we had meetings with our cohort and, grad school classes where we did talk about all this stuff, and it was very practical. And so it really does help to center what you're learning in terms of education pedagogy if you can center it with practice and experience, because nothing,
Yeah.
I mean, I strongly believe that teachers who are experienced should get paid higher. It's not just a union thing. It's because of the fact that years of experience for teaching is just a tremendous difference in being a good teacher. I think it's a little bit harder as you get older to maybe bond with the students right away. But if you're a good teacher and you set up a classroom environment that's conducive to learning and respect amongst everybody, including the teacher towards the students, it makes a huge difference. And so that's why I think veteran teachers, I mean, there's so many of my colleagues that I'm just like, you're such a good teacher, and you adapt so quickly in the classroom. And I don't think that that would be possible without a solid foundation from a master's program. I think it's really important.
Yeah, for sure. All right. One final question. I have like 10 more questions. I'm going to choose one of them because I want to keep this to an hour.
Of course.
You teach public forum and policy in your class at Niles West. What are your pet peeves about these styles, if any? And if you were to create like an Oddo style Oddo debate, what might that look like?
So for public forum, I think that when they try to make it like a policy debate, I think that that defeats the purpose, right? The whole point of public forum was started is because policy debate was losing an audience, right? It was losing the layperson who could come in. They could be a firefighter, teacher, bus driver, whoever. They could come in and they could make an, adjudicate a debate and make a decision, a solid decision based upon persuasion and based upon the type of debate that you don't have to sit in a classroom and learn before you can do it. And I think public forum, from my opinion of what rounds I've seen, have kind of gone away towards the policy debate, which is, I think, ironic because the whole point of public forum was started to focus on the elements that maybe policy debate didn't emphasize. And so that's kind of my pet peeve in public forums when I see kids like, my first contention is blah, blah, and they start spreading, and you're like, that's not public forum. I mean, right? Like, that's not I think conducive to learning. But the public forum community has decided that's okay, and that's their decision, and I respect that. And
I will say one saving grace is that at highest levels that doesn't happen. So if you're teaching a student, you're like, what do winners look like? Not like policy.
Okay, yeah, all right, and that's what that's good to hear, because I think that I like the fact that anyone could come in. My principal could come in, and she could know what's going on without me, without me even to explain. No, it's okay that they're going this fast, and that, they're not freaking out. But so policy debate, I think that's one of its flaws, right? Is that when you talk about policy debate, people are like, "What on earth are you talking about?" And there's a lot of inside jokes because of the terms and the lingo and the spreading. I mean, that's obviously huge, in the breathing, and so I think for policy debate, one of my pet peeves is if a student disrespects anyone in the debate, I think crosses the line between confidence and cockiness, is one of my pet peeves, and also just like lack of organization. So that can be frustrating if like there's no clear purpose in the speech, and the speech is just reading evidence and there's no direction. Then also bringing up like multiple, which doesn't apply for virtual, but in person when they're doing paperless and they've got like 5 laptops in front of them, and then their partner runs up and brings a laptop. I think remembering that even though, yes, it's paperless debate, but there are other people in the room, and that, bottom line is that you have to convince the judge, and that might not be the best effective persuasive thing to do, is by like surrounding yourself like looks like you're working for SpaceX. But but I think it's really cool. It's really cool to like judge around and be like, oh my God, these are high school kids, and sometimes these are middle school kids, and just how smart they are, and how because it makes me optimistic for the future for our country and the world, that it shows like that there's just these kids that are out there that are just so smart, and they're going to solve the problems that we have. So, and I think that having them do debate and can only help them think about how to solve those problems better.
Yeah, great. That's a beautiful place to end. I have heard a ton of optimism in the debate community about exactly what you're saying, that like it's very hard to hang out with debaters, and not just debaters, but like kids who are interested, and then you can see what they can master in a semester or a year, and how they can change in that short amount of time. It makes you very optimistic. It's hard not to be, really.
Yeah, no, and it's a wonderful thing to end on, and it also circles back to that success thing, right? Is that success is so relative. You see that student who, I've had students who've had stutters, or were terrified of public speaking, and then have joined the debate team. And yes, of course, they did not go to the TOC, but they've come back and been like, thank you, Mr. Oddo, because I now went to my first job and I wasn't freaking out about my presentation, my PowerPoint presentation I had to do in front of 10 people, and I did awesome on it. Right. And so like just hearing that, and just having a place to go. I mean, some high schools are big, and sometimes some students can have a hard time finding where they fit in, and just having a space for that, whether that's theater, whether that's sports, whether that, just having somewhere to go for a student, I think can really make a significant difference in their mental health. And so that's another thing that I'm proud of with debate is I feel like we are a community that is accepting of difference. And it's always been like that. I remember back in the day, like I definitely think that there was some gender stuff going on when my mom was, working. But at the same time, even with that, there was still acceptance and acceptance of difference. And I've always felt that way about the policy debate community. And I for sure think that way now. And that's cool. It's cool that policy debate and debate in general is sort of the forefront of like societal acceptance and tolerance. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And a community that will call people out if they don't practice those things.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. I love this too. Eric, it was really great talking. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
I think it could be very easy to talk to you for another 13 hours, but for the sake of the audience, we'll cut it here.
Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate your kindness and compliments. I don't deserve them. It's really cool to now. I feel like I'm getting older and to look back at sort of this today and, before the interview, kind of being able to reflect and take a moment to kind of look back is pretty cool. And it makes me
you have a lot to be proud of. You really do.
And I'm thankful and to be thankful for. Thank you so much. Be thankful for all the support, my mom, the administration, the parents, the students, my assistant coaches. But thank you as well for just being so complimentary, and it's really made me feel good. So I appreciate that. It motivates me to continue to do what I do. And it was unexpected. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Take care. Have a great day.